Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. The human behavior plays an important and major role in social development of the nation. Previously, Isaac Newton made the law of motion in three ways. Basing that, we can also make three laws of human behavior. Human behavior tends towards the developmental task and other things. We can find the various types of human behavior, not only in society, not only in sastras, even according to psychology, we can find the behaviorism of human beings, because God has given an extraordinary sense than other beings, mean like animal, birds, etc. We have sixth sense by which we can differentiate between good and bad. Our behavior shows what type of our nature will be towards others. Basing on the behavior of humans, the nation is uplifted or down. So, human behavior is one of the most important factor towards whatever the good or bad. We have to know not only according to law, even according to psychology, how human behavior plays its major role in each and every activities of the society. And we can classificate the human behavior in various ways. Molecular and moral behavior, etc., are the major important roles in one's life. Basing on that, we can come to the nature of any human being. There are so many solutions for the pollutions of minds, or various factors makes the behavior of human into good or bad. We have to find it, because it should not be left as it comes. It should be monitored. Unless we possess the difference of good and bad in behavioral phenomena, we cannot judge the human behavior and etc. So, we can emphasize much on these factors, which are the root causes of human behaviorism. So, we should take much care, we should take much studies towards the upliftment of human behavior. So, naturally, basing on the behavior of a person, the family stands with. Basing on family's behavior, the village stands forth. Basing on the village, the city, basing on city, state, basing on state, the country, basing on the country or a nation. Therefore, we should follow Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We should give up all other things. We should feel We are all when feelings are none. So we have to get analytical knowledge. Therefore, I took the topic of law of human behavior. This is the most important one. That's why today I took it. So once again I am telling law of human behavior. Let us start with prayer. Buddhir bhalam yashodhairyam nirbhayatvam arogata ajadhyam vakpatutvam cha hanumat smaranad bhavev. When Isaac Newton put forth the three laws of motion more than 300 years ago, he did something radical. In the spirit of Newton's three laws of motions, we can analyze the three laws of human behavior also. Newton's law of motion in physics describes first law. A body at rest will remain at rest, and a body in motion will remain in motion unless it is acted upon by an external force. Second law. The force acting on an object is equal to the mass of that object times its acceleration. Law 3. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Very famous quote. But there is no equivalent of Newton's law of motion in the behavioral sciences, and unfortunately, Newton's work in math and physics does not provide much information about human behavior. Behavior tends to follow the status quo unless it is acted upon by a decrease in friction or increase in fuel. Why? Humans are creatures of least resistance. We take the road most traveled or the road best paved. So much of our behavior runs on autopilot that it takes a significant degree of effort to take simple actions outside of our behavior. Runs on autopilot that it takes a significant degree of effort to take simple actions outside of our normal routine. Even when we have the best intentions of changing our behavior. Think of how many times you have resolved to restart or start biking to work, and how many times you have actually done so. There is a bias we share that describes why we are so bad at this, and it's called the status quo bias. The status quo is a powerful force in human behavior, directly analogs to the inertia described by Newton's first law of motion. Force is necessary for a change in motion to occur. There are two primary types of forces in the context of human behavior, just as there are in physics. Force that get in the way of performing behavior are called friction. From the feeling of exhaustion when it's time to exercise to the application form to set up a health savings account, or the barriers encountered trying to make a routine doctor's appointment. Fuel is the second type of force, representing anything that makes a behavior more appealing, from the gamification of unfunded procedures to delivering incentives contingent on good behavior. Like the challenge of competition as reward substitution to encourage exercise. Friction slows you down and fuel pushes you forward. Unless there are changes in friction or fuel, you tend to stick to the status quo. But by the same principle, changes in behavior can occur through changes in fuel and friction. Behavior is not something that lives in a vacuum. It's a combination of a person with all their intentions, beliefs, knowledge, motivation, personality, history, and so on, and their environment, including everything from the choice architecture of your grocery store checkout line to the lights, smells, and friends or foes surrounding them. It is a special mixture of these two types of ingredients, the person and the environment, that leads to particular behavior being exhibited at a particular time and place. Kurt Lewin is famous for pinning human behavior down to these two essential elements: the individual characteristics or state of a person and the environment in which they are situated. His universal equation goes way back to 1936 and is no less relevant today. This law is more complex than it may appear at first glance, going beyond the independent observations that behavior is dependent on the person and that behavior is also influenced by the environment. In other words, Levin's equation does not imply that behavior is a function of the person and separately that behavior is also a function of environment separately. We might observe that when someone is stressed, she may be less likely to order a salad at her work cafeteria and instead opts for a less healthy alternative. And separately, if we put up a sign encouraging salads in the criteria, we might see an increase in salad uptake among lunch caters overall or lunch eaters overall. But knowing each of these on their own will not get us much closer to knowing whether Emma will order a salad today. It is acknowledgement that you can't fully understand Emma's behavior if you understand Emma, who is she, or how she feels, or what she thinks, nor if you only understand the environment she is in. You need both. As expected, we can say Emma means any one of the name, Sujata, whatever the name, an imaginative name of a woman. We put a name of Emma, we should not mention. So let us take any one of the Lakshmi. Is generally more likely to order a salad when she is not stressed overall, just as she is generally more likely to order a salad when there is a sign about a salad present. But something interesting happens when she is both stressed and there is to sign. In this case, when Lakshmi is stressed, the sign actually backfires and leads to a lower likelihood of Lakshmi getting a salad than if there were no sign present. We might suspect that when she is stressed, seeing a sign promoting salads could come off as patronizing, leading Emma to exhibit reactance which triggers a rebellion against the salads. While this is just one fiction's and simplified example, it demonstrates the importance of considering both the person and the environment when trying to understand behavior. For every decision made, there are trade-offs and potential for unintended consequences. What is the thing of trade-offs? There are costs and benefits attached to every decision, is it? We may actively weigh and pros and cons of a delusion at times or a decision at times, and other times we may not, is it? But regardless of our attention to the trade-offs inherent to any decision, there are often losses suffered in one area when gains are made in another area. For example, say you are considering starting a multivitamin. You might say, sure, it may very well be a placebo, but what's the downside? What cons could there be to taking a vitamin? To start, there is the fact that you have to pay for it. Vitamins may not be exorbitantly expensive, but for every dollar that is spent on vitamins, that same dollar cannot be spent on something else. This concept of what are all the things I am giving up if I do X is known as a opportunity cost, and it's a type of a trade off that we often ignore. One may one way to weigh trade offs like these is to classify the potential pros and cons of a decision and then weigh them, a method called signal detecting theory. See the article written with Dan Ariely for a deep dive. When situations are complex and involve a degree of uncertainty, we can use this method of consider the trade-offs of a particular decisions. Because our time and resources are limited, we have to choose how to spend them wisely. Unintended consequences. Unintended consequences are regulated to trade offs. Just like the pros and cons of every decision that we don't see. There may be some unanticipated effects caused by the decision. When making a decision, we may not predict future effects that negate or undermine the positive aspects, is it, of that decision. A classic example of this is the crowding out or other justification effect, where a positive behavior like exercise is initially boosted with an extrinsic incentive, but the positive effect disappears and may even retreat to a level lower than before the incentive was introduced as soon as the incentive is discontinued. Rewards like this can increase a behavior in the short term, but undermine motivation in the long term. Oftentimes, our actions have effects that go beyond the impact on ourselves. These types of effects on third parties are called externalities. And externalities can range from the pollution produced by cars or coal burning factories to your decision to pay outrageously loud music, which your neighbors might not appreciate very much, as they attempt to have a romantic evening at home. The tragedy of the commons is a classic example of negative externalities. When each individuals act in their own interests, it's not their intention to deplete the pool of resources so that everyone else suffers. So that exactly what can happen when shared resources are abused. Unintended consequences can be highly complex, as in the case of plastic bag bans actually being harmful to the environment despite the good intentions behind the policy. Why now? When Isaac Newton proposed the three laws of motion in 1687, the physical sciences were undergoing a considerable flurry of advancement. So much so that both the Industrial Revolution and the philosophical age of Enlightenment were spurred. Soon after, the advances made during these two landmark historical eras that you surely remember from your high school history class were made possible in part because of a newfound enthusiasm for leveraging scientific advances to industrial applications. Only now in 21st century are practitioners beginning to take seriously the findings and methods of behavioral sciences to harness them within industry. Behavioral science has graduated from being a popular buzzword to a workforce necessity at innovative companies, and the understanding of human behavior is being applied to industry in ways like never before, not only for marketing purposes but in decision making across domains as broad as banking, consumer products, and healthcare. Like the physical properties of the universe, human behavior is complicated. And just as Newton's laws describe the motion of physical objects, these laws of human behavior aim to provide a general model for how humans behave. People tend to stick to the status quo unless the forces of friction or fuel push us off our path. Behavior is a function of the person and the environment. Every decision includes trade offs and the potential for unintended consequences. If we keep these three laws in mind, we should be able to design better products for people to help them behave better, not only in the labs of universities but in the private sector, from your savings account to your fitness app. Let us see the types of human behavior and psychology. Understanding human behavior can become simple if we could understand how they behave in certain situations. In other words, understanding human behavior is crucial to understand the mental state of human beings. To make this simple, a human behavior study has identified 4 basic personality types. This article discusses the different types of human behavior. This topic is for us. What is human behavior when we come to the question? According to one definition, behavior can be defined as the actions or reactions of a person in response to external or internal stimulus situation. To understand the behavior of a person, we have to understand what that person will do if something happens. Approving or disapproving human behavior is known as evaluating behavior. Many of us evaluate others based on their actions and reactions to different stimuli. Behavior is mostly influenced by the nature of the person and then nature of the situation. First of all, we have to consider the person. Later, basing on his situation, we can come to understand the behavior of the person. Tolerance more about to learn more. At the same time, we have to learn more about human behaviors and to bring positive changes to your behavior. You should get in touch with the best psychiatrist or psychologist in your society. Let us classify the human behavior. It is based on the way people act or behave in different situations. And in response to different stimuli, human behavior can be divided into different types. Let us discuss below some unknown or important types of human behavior. Let us find out the common types of human behavior or human beings can have. Molecular and moral behaviors. What is molecular behavior? Molecular behavior, it is an unexpected behavior that occurs without thinking. One example is suddenly closing eyes when something is about to the eyes. Molecular behavior, no, molar behavior, moral behavior. Unlike molecular behavior, this type of behavior occurs after thinking. For example, a person changes the way when she or he sees a harmful thinking. Overt and covert behavior. Let us find what is overt behavior. It is visible type of behavior, but overt type, that can occur outside of human beings. How? For example, we can judge on basing his behavior of eating food, riding on a bicycle, and playing football, or some examples. When we come about covert behavior, unlike overt behavior, this type of behavior is not visible like overt. Thinking is a good example of covert behavior because no one can see others thinking. For example, a person seems to be dull, but in his activities are highly impressive. How can we judge basing on this? It is a covert behavior. Third, voluntary and involuntary behavior. So, let us see what is voluntary behavior. Voluntary behavior is a type of behavior that depends on human want. We can characterize walking, speaking, and writing as voluntary behaviors. What is involuntary behavior? Unlike voluntary behavior, this type occurs naturally and without thinking. How? Breathing air is a perfect example of involuntary behavior. That's it. Now, popular type of personalities. An important research study in human behavior has classified human personality into 4 types. We can judge how the persons will be there: optimistic, pessimistic, trusting, and envious. Unfortunately, envious is the most common type. According to experts, more than 90% of individuals can be classified under these categories. There seems to be some balance in different personality types. Now let us see. Who is optimistic? About 20% of the people living in this world are believed to have this personality. An optimistic person stays hopeful in all situations and keeps trying no matter how hard circumstances get. Furthermore, these people can be pessimistic in some situations. Now, come for pessimistic. There seems to be some balance in different personality types. About 20% of the people in the world are estimated to have this personality. A pessimistic person may doubt everything around his or her. Moreover, these people can be optimistic in some situations. Third one, trusting. About 20% of the people living in this world are believed to have this personality. One of the major traits of trusting people is to trust others. These people do not need a major reason to believe others. There are situations when these people may not trust people also. Now, envious. The number of people having this kind of personality varies from society to society. According to research, we are discussing here about 30% of people in the world are estimated to have the personality. Envious people are not always like this. They can be supportive as well. Consider contacting a mental health expert if you want to overcome a mental problem. In the end, we can that understanding human behavior can help us handle different people effectively. A best psychiatrist or psychologist know this very well. You may have more question about this topic and a psychologist or psychiatrist can help you. Thank you. Varanda. श्रीकांताय कल्याणनिधे निधेन्द्रां श्रीवेंकटनिवासाय श्रीनिवासाय मंगलम मंगलाशासनपरिमदाचार्य पुरोगमे सर्वेश पूर्वैराचार्य सत्कृतायास्तु मंगलम्.